In December 1944, a 19-year-old machine gunner made a decision that would turn him into a European legend for 80 years. He took off his combat helmet, the same helmet he'd used as a toilet in his foxhole, filled it with beer, and ran through enemy fire to save his dying friends. Today, millions of people drink beer from ceramic helmets in his honor, but he didn't know he was famous for 65 years. This is the insane true story of the most famous thing you've never heard of. Vincent Joseph Speranza was born during the Great Depression to Italian immigrant parents in Hell's Kitchen, Manhattan. 7 siblings, Sunday spaghetti dinners, a normal American kid. But in 1943, at just 18 years old, Vincent did something that wasn't normal at all. He didn't just enlist in the army. He volunteered for the most dangerous job in the entire military, paratrooper, the 101st Airborne Division, the Screamy Eagles, elite, deadly, fearless. Most soldiers wanted to stay on the ground. Vincent, he wanted to jump out of planes into enemy territory at night. Here's the crazy part. His first combat jump wasn't from a plane. My first jump was off the back of a truck. All my airborne training. He arrived in Europe just after Operation Market Garden, the disastrous Allied airborne assault that killed thousands. As a replacement soldier, he was nobody. Combat veterans didn't even speak to him. Until you prove yourself in combat, nobody talks to you, he later said. That chance to prove himself was coming, faster than anyone expected, because in 3 weeks, Vincent Speranza would find himself in the most important battle of World War II, surrounded by the entire German army, with no food, no winter clothes, and 0 chance of survival. But first, we need to talk about what was about to hit Europe like a sledgehammer.
December 16, 1944, 200,000 German troops, 1,000 tanks, a surprise attack through the Ardennes forest designed to split the Allied armies in half and capture the port of Antwerp. Hitler's last desperate gamble, the largest battle fought by the United States in World War II. General Eisenhower looked at his map and saw one tiny crossroads town in Belgium that the Germans absolutely had to capture to succeed, Bastogne. 7 roads met there. If the Germans took Bastogne, their tanks would have clear access to the ports. The war could turn. Eisenhower gave the order, hold Bastogne at all costs. The 101st Airborne was pulled from rest areas, loaded onto trucks, and sent racing toward Belgium in the middle of the night. Vincent Speranza jumped off that truck, his first jump into a nightmare. The paratroopers had exactly 1 day before the Germans arrived. They dug foxholes in the frozen ground. No winter gear, no heavy weapons, no idea how bad it was about to get. Vincent's job? Machine gunner, a Browning 19-30 caliber. He was 19 years old, and he was about to become the tip of the spear, defending Western civilization. December 19th, 1944, first light. Vincent looked across an open field from his foxhole. German infantry, thousands of them, walking slowly through the snow. 400 yards away? His lieutenant's order was simple. Wait until 400 yards, not before. Vincent's finger hovered over the trigger. 350 yards, 300 yards, 250 yards. Now, now! We opened up with everything we had. The snow turned red. It was a slaughter. But that was just day 1. The siege was about to get so much worse. By December 20th, the Germans had completely encircled Bastogne. No food coming in, no ammunition, no medical supplies, and the temperature, 20 degrees below 0. The Luftwaffe bombed the medieval town into rubble. German artillery never stopped. For 8 days, the defenders of Bastogne lived in frozen hell. But Vincent Speranza, he was defiant. I don't care what you guys throw at me, you're not getting by my foxhole. When the German commander sent a formal surrender demand, American General Anthony McAuliffe sent back a one-word reply: nuts. The siege continued. On the second day of the siege, Vincent's assistant machine gunner, Joe Willis, took shrapnel in both legs. Vincent found him in the makeshift hospital, a bombed-out church where wounded soldiers lay on the cold floor, bleeding. "How you doing?" "I got a couple pieces of shrapnel in my leg, it's not too bad." "Yeah, go find me something to drink." Here's where Vincent did something that would echo through history for 80 years. No supplies were coming in, the town was in ruins, but when your foxhole buddy asks for a drink, you find a way. Vincent ran through the devastated streets of Bastogne, dodging German artillery, searching for anything to give his friend. In a bombed-out tavern, he found it, one beer tap still working. But he had a problem. No cup, no canteen, nothing to carry it in. So he took off his helmet. The same helmet he wore into combat. The same helmet that had been his pillow, his wash basin, his toilet in the foxhole. He filled it with beer. Vincent sprinted back to the church, careful not to spill a drop, and handed the helmet to Joe. The wounded soldiers gathered around, their faces lit up. They passed the helmet around, each taking a sip. For just a few minutes, in the middle of the worst battle of their lives, these young men tasted something other than fear and blood. Vincent went back for more. An officer spotted him. "You stupid bastard! Don't you know I have chest cases and stomach cases in there? You give them beer, you'll kill them." Vincent put the helmet back on his head. Beer dripped down his face, soaked his uniform. He ran back to his foxhole. End of story, right? Not even close.
December 26th, 1944. General Patton's Third Army smashed through German lines. The siege was broken. The 101st Airborne had held. Not one German soldier set foot in Bastogne. But the war wasn't over for Vincent Speranza. 144 days in combat. He fought across Europe, town after town, battle after battle. And then they found something that changed these young soldiers forever. As they marched through a forest in Germany, the smell hit them first. We smelled something. It got stronger and stronger. At a clearing stood Kaufring, a subcamp of Dachau. Bodies stacked like firewood. Prisoners who were more skeleton than human. Ovens still warm. Don't forget, we were 19-year-old kids. You see all that, you were sick at your stomach. You were angry. You were sad. I don't believe what I'm seeing. I don't believe it. Some survivors crawled to the American soldiers on their elbows and knees, kissing their boots. Others could only groan. Vincent carried them in his arms. Days later, Vincent Speranza stood in Adolf Hitler's Eagle's Nest in Berchtesgaden. On the wall hung a map, color-coded. Brown for Germany, green for Italy, red for Japan. There it was on the wall. What was going to happen if those dictators had succeeded? Germany was to get all of Europe, all of Ukraine up to the Ural Mountains, Canada and the United States. If anyone ever doubted why that war had to be fought and why it had to be won, there it was on the wall. For his service, Purple Heart, Bronze Star, Presidential Unit Citation. He'd been wounded. He'd witnessed hell. He'd helped save the world. But like so many veterans, when Vincent came home, he buried those memories deep. And that beer run in Bastogne, he didn't talk about it for 6 decades.
Vincent Speranza came home. December 1945, he married Iva Leftwich in 1948, raised 3 kids, got degrees from Wagner University and NYU, and he became a high school history teacher at Curtis High School. For over 20 years, he taught American history to teenagers. The irony? This man who had lived through history's most important moments never talked about them. For years, I completely buried the military, all the killing and loss of lives. I pursued my profession in education and concentrated on helping kids. He retired, raised his family, lived a quiet life. And then in 2009, something extraordinary happened. Vincent was shopping in Florida when he struck up a conversation with a Belgian woman. She asked where he was from. He mentioned he'd fought in Bastogne. Her reaction shocked him. "You have not been back? You must. The people of Bastogne have never forgotten the 101st Airborne Division." She told him they reenact the battle every year. They honor the soldiers. They remember. So at 84 years old, Vincent returned to Bastogne for the first time in 65 years. He walked through the town, now rebuilt and peaceful. They showed him where his foxhole had been, the stream where he'd broken ice for water. Then 2 European tank officers approached him, Belgian and Dutch. "Tell us a story from the war." Vincent told them about the beer run, about filling his helmet, about the wounded soldiers. The officers stared at him. "You were the GI who gave beer to the wounded? You're famous in Europe." They brought him a tray, 4 bottles of beer called Airborne beer, 4 ceramic cups shaped like helmets. The label showed a paratrooper carrying a helmet. A local brewery had created this beer 2 decades earlier to honor the legend of the American GI's compassion. Townspeople had witnessed his run through the streets in 1944. They'd passed the story down through generations. But until that moment, in 2009, no one knew his name. No one knew he was still alive. After being a machine gunner at the Battle of the Bulge, winning a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star, and 2 decades as a public school teacher, Airborne beer is what I'm famous for?
The discovery of his fame gave Vincent Speranza a new purpose. He traveled across America and Europe, military bases, universities, Bastogne commemorations, where he was treated like royalty. At 89, he wrote his memoir, Nuts, a 101st Airborne Division machine gunner at Bastogne. In 2021, at 96, his interviews went viral on YouTube, millions of views, young people discovering this witty, humble man who lived through history. He spoke to new generations of soldiers. Freedom's not free. Someone will always have to pay the price. And thank God, we still have men like this who are willing to pay the price to keep America free. March 2023, Vincent Speranza was 98 years old. And he went skydiving. Jumping is the most fantastic thing in the world. The last jump I made was in 1945. I said, I'm gonna be gone soon, and I gotta just do it one more time. 78 years after his combat service, the old screaming eagle descended from the sky one last time. 5 months later, on August 2, 2023, Vincent Joseph Speranza died at Springfield Memorial Hospital. He was 98 years old. The 101st Airborne Division paid tribute. Rest in peace, Vinny. The U.S. Embassy in Brussels called him a true force of nature, always present at every major ceremony, always humble. Today in Bastogne, visitors still order Airborne beer in ceramic helmets. Teachers still tell the story of the paratrooper who filled his helmet with compassion. Vincent Speranza lived 98 years. He survived the deadliest battle. He liberated concentration camps. He raised a family. He educated thousands of students. And in his final decades, he became an ambassador for the greatest generation. His message was simple: freedom isn't free. Evil must be confronted. And small acts of kindness can echo through eternity. Vincent Joseph Speranza. Machine gunner, liberator, teacher, legend. This is his story, This is why we remember.